About to start.
And we're on. Action.
Okay. Hi. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Eva. Thanks for having
Hi.
me.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you so much. So, Dan, tell us a little bit about what you do.
So, I'm a woodworker. Been doing this for about 20 years. It's a second career for me. Started off in academia, and I had I had a scholarship where I had a year where I didn't have to work in the college, and I got a job. I said I wanted something completely different. No teaching, no translating, no, computer work. And almost on a whim, I had always liked woodwork. It's something I did with my dad when I was younger, um, from the United States, where wood is just it's your go-to material. So everybody has some woodworking tools in their garage or basement, and I felt like that was something I enjoyed, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. Um, I had some free time on my hands while I was supposed to be writing my thesis, and I got a job at City Joinery, which is no longer working, but it was an architect, design build studio in Brooklyn, New York, and he would design custom pieces. And there was a group of, depending, but somewhere between 5 and 10 people, less than that, 5 and 8 people. And we build from his designs. At the beginning, I was doing a lot of sanding. I quit a number of times. I came back, so didn't like it. I eventually got better at it. I really enjoyed it. I found that I was enjoying it more than academia, and I finished my graduate studies, and I joined the shop full time. At some point, my wife and I decided that we wanted to move out of New York. We had a baby. It's difficult in the city. And we took a trip to Argentina. And we had been coming. She's from here. I have family from Argentina, so we have been coming every year to visit. We decided this was a place we wanted to move. Um, Basically, long story short, we wound up moving here, and instead of working in a design studio another person's design studio, I opened up my own um, project. So I began making my own designs, which was great. I had started actually in New York before moving here doing custom framing and furniture. I used to rent the studio where I originally worked at night. So I would come in at 6 when everybody was leaving, and I'd stay till 2 or 3 in the morning making furniture. And there was sort of a mishmash of projects, and I was selling at an art fair in Union Square in New York, which went really well. We moved, we came here, I started making my own designs, and it's been a organic process where one design has moved into another, and I've been sort of growing personally and in my business and making wood furniture. Sure, a furniture maker. So I do wood, but almost all of it includes some leather. So I do leather work as well. And a lot of it includes metal. I have a little metal working area in my shops. I weld, and I work with steel or stainless steel, sometimes bronze pieces, but primarily wood. But there is some elements of other materials that I like to mix in.
That sounds much even more interesting, mixing all of these different textures and materials and possibilities together. Well, I definitely want to direct all of the people listening to your Etsy shop too, so they can see the furniture there. Um, do you know how can we tell people to go there? The website, the URL?
Okay, it's cool. Can I put that on the screen here? It's a
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I didn't prepare in advance, but I'm gonna copy the link and just put it on the screen for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, that's great. And when
So,
I'll also put it there so people can click it directly because Dan's furniture is incredible, so comfortable and minimalist. And I know that you pack it very well. I heard in order to send it. It's a craft
this
and
is
it's
true. So I put it in our chat. I don't know if you have a way of putting it on the
I did.
screen, but anyway, it's
Okay.
danbursztyn.etsy.com. I also have an Instagram account where people can check out my work and my shop process, which is at Dan Bursztyn.
I've seen
And
that. Yeah, I follow you. So I'll definitely link everything so people can follow and also check out the work. And so that's an amazing story. And it's really inspiring how you had the bravery to leave part of your life, basically what you had dedicated yourself to, which was academia, and start um, your
I
journey
was
with.
happy to do it. I mean, people go through lots of changes in life. I had a baby. That was huge. We moved into family life from one thing to the other. I'd never look back sort of and wish that I had continued in academia. What I most liked about academia was reading and teaching, both of which I continue to do a lot of.
Ex-
Um, you know, there's opportunities for teaching in the shop. I have people who work for me. I could squeeze in a minute. So I'm
yeah.
happy with the decision.
Great. Yeah. So what have you learned about the material, specifically wood? I know you work with other materials too, but at least for this interview, specifically about wood, what have you learned that's special about it?
So I feel like almost all American woodworkers, anybody who's really interested in wood, winds up studying like the holy triptych of American furniture makers, which is Wharton Esherick from the 50s, 40s, 50s, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Nakashima and Maloof. It's Isamu Nakashima and Sam Maloof. And those are like the
Mhm.
three big, I'm sure you've come across these names before.
Mm.
Kashima wrote this autobiography slash treatise on wood and woodworking, which is fantastic. And that was a huge inspiration at the beginning of my career. It's called The Soul of a Tree.
Wow.
And he intersperses sort of stories of his life with woodwork. And for Nakashima, for everybody, I mean, he really called attention to the fact that this begins in nature, in a forest, with a tree that's growing. So it's nice to keep in mind that kind of connection, and it's hard not to keep it in mind because when a tree's alive, there's just a ton of movement happening inside that we don't see, but the growth, there's sugars that are going up and down in water and evapotranspiration, photosynthesis. There's a lot of action happening. When a tree dies or when a tree's cut down, that you kind of begins its journey into being turned into something, quotidian and furniture for us. It continues to have a life, even though it's no longer living sort of in the biological sense
Mhm.
because the fibers they've dried out. They never completely dry. It's impossible because there's humidity in the air. Wood, as we know, plain wood that's part of a piece of furniture, part of a door, floor, house, always absorbing some moisture from the air. So it's changing its dimensions constantly. But wood is with the seasons being expanding and contracting because the fibers in the wood are absorbing more humidity and during the humid months and losing it during the dry months. The number one challenge for woodworkers, how do you make something that's stable out of a material that's not? I mean, almost everything else everything moves a little bit, but wood moves a lot. So that's a great challenge. Always when you're designing and coming up with a new idea, well, what's going to happen in the winter? What's going to happen in the summer? What happens if I send this to Utah? What happens if this is going to Florida? Where, how do we handle wood movement? And that's, I mean, if you look at that question, that sort of traces, it's like in broad terms, the technological development of humanity almost, because there's, when you think of how architecture has moved along through the ages, there's huge advance. Once people kind of began to understand wood movement and contain it and work with it, as there was like huge advances in technique and construction and the sort of buildings you can build, things we can make. And it's always a fun challenge. I have a hygrometer. It's just a little apparatus that measures humidity in the wood. So I kind of know what I'm dealing with. I have an idea of how much it's going to expand and contract. Carpenters from other generations would have just a piece of wood hanging on the wall with a little needle, and as it would expand and contract, that needle would move to show relative humidity in the air just by how the wood that's nailed to the wall is responding. That sort of speaks to the life of the wood, right? That even though it's already been cut, it's got this movement, and that's the challenge. Make something that's going to stand the abuse that its owners are going to dish out, which always
Mhm.
happens. Chairs fall off of tables, vacuum cleaners, little kids jump up and draw, and that's how it goes. And the test of time, that pressure that the wood itself is exerting against the joinery just from wood movement is another challenge. And then all of that, I feel like, has to be inside something beautiful, because the more beautiful the thing is, the less likely it is to end up in the dump someday. Um,
Mhm.
so if really nice furniture should well outlast the people who bought it. It's multiple generations, and and in order for someone gives you an antique table and it's looks like junk, you're not going to want it. So it's good for it to sort of be. I like make sure that my designs have some timelessness to them, that hopefully they'll be passed down and enjoyed for generations.
Wow, that's fascinating. So it's a material that it continues to live in some sense, or it has some kind of organic function that still happens. I didn't know that. So that's amazing. Thanks for sharing. And so wood, how long can a wood last? Like, for example, when you think of your furniture, your design is like, because I've seen architecture, for example, from Japan that can be centuries old. So how strong is wood?
Oh, it's a tough question to answer, because a huge part, it depends on the wood, and it
Mm,
depends on the application and where it is. There's wood from inside the pyramids, from the tombs in Giza, that it's well outlasted even Asian civilization. But it's been protected, it's been buried. Wood can petrify and become stone. It's that's a I, People kind of think about furniture in 100-year blocks. When the good wood glue says this is going to last 100 years,
okay.
basically you're expecting your thing to last 100 years. There's like a Buddhist principle.
Hmm.
I believe this is something from Nakashima, and that the whatever you build should last as long as the tree's growth, the tree's lifespan took to bring that wood into the world. So if you're using a 300-year-old tree, which is quite possible, your table should last 300 years, enough time to give another tree a chance to grow to make another. But you're asking furniture. Wood itself, I have some fence posts that have rotted after 3 years outside and in the ground where it's wet. Depends on the wood. There's wood. I've very dense tropical hardwoods with lots of oils that don't rot when you put them in the ground. Those can, we've in Argentina, there's a tree called quebracho, which is rich in tannins. It's basically steel. It's just this really slow growing tree, hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's an endangered species now, because so much of that has been cut down, just like teak in Burma, primarily by, I believe, to build the railroads. There's railroad ties, because it's just such an amazingly dense material. So those last as railroad ties for hundreds of years, no problem. And then, I can dig a hole and put a piece of elm or eucalyptus in the ground, and poof, it's gone in a year or two.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, I really love that Nakashima view on how to keep woodwork sustainable.
Yeah, I think he's repeating something that already is part of another culture. He's not something.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that
That's an
as well.
important message. I think that that's nice to keep in mind, at least as we, we cut down trees for our own enjoyment and use. So
Yeah.
that's amazing that there's also wood as strong as potentially, steel, like that it can be so strong. So, what are some other properties of wood that have caught your attention?
Other property of wood. Wood is just it's a great material. It's really easy to work with.
Mhm.
It's forgiving. It's nice to have around. It's soft. Different applications. Just got a lot of different applications, from large scale architecture, roofs, floors are nice to have wooden floors, wooden furniture. It's nice to feel. It's nice that it's if it's done right, it's a environmentally friendly material. This is something that grows back. Um,
Mhm.
so if it's if
Absolutely.
you it's I in my shop, I remember we used to be proud in New York of the amount of garbage we took out, which is very little. We had a dumpster, and it was I don't remember. Maybe it was 2, 3 cubic yards, and it was like once every other week or so. almost take out no garbage from the shop. All of the wood that I produce, all of it either goes to heating my house or asados, which is Argentine barbecue. To go to more of that, but in the end, the shop and my house are both heated 100% with wood, either offcuts from my shop or pruning. I've never bought or cut a tree
Really?
for
Wow.
heating. So I do my best to, like, for the wood that I get, treat it with respect, nestle all my pieces. Normal, I use a lot of curves in my work. And most woodworkers are sort of taught to, I was taught this as well. You make a square, you want 4 squares. So you get a piece of wood, you make it a rectangle that you can machine, and then you draw the curve that you want, and then you cut it out. And I've kind of changed that all up in my shop. I imagine I'm not the first person to do this, but and this is something they do with like CNC machining. We'll get into technology that you were asking about for plywood. It's called nesting, and you figure out, you start out with the curved pieces and how many of them can you get into one piece of plywood. I do that with solid wood. So that if I have a curved chair leg and the curve is like this, I'll put, 2 chair legs and three
Mhm.
chair legs and nest them together so that I use them the least wood possible for each of my projects.
Mhm.
And that speaks to the respecting wood and making sure that I'm not, overusing, um, disrespecting the material that I'm using it, as conscientiously as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. It takes so much effort, so much water, time, soil, conditions to make wood. It's
In our
important.
area, for sure, we live in an arid area. The trees take a very long time to grow. There are places, forests, where trees are just springing up all the time. A lot. I don't for my furniture. I use hardwood from the north of Argentina called soy, and it's not a reforested um, tree. But for almost everything else in Argentina, we have eucalyptus tree farms, and I think that they between 3 and 8 years they get cut down every 3 to 8 years depending on the size of the trunk. And it's a beautiful wood
It is.
and great for construction. It's great for a lot of applications. It's not great for my furniture. Um, it's a slightly softer wood, but I do make an effort to, when possible, to use wood that has been reforested or that's been certified. The Farming, harvesting wood, logging is like a huge worldwide problem, even when it's um, replanted. Often I get these soita trees from places that are being cut in order to make way for tree farms, ridiculously. It's, what is it called? Cultivos in Spanish.
Mhm.
It's an industrial farming kind of way. It requires it's a lot less pesticides and a lot less chemicals than other types of farming. Nothing's 100% without its impact on the environment. So I do think that one
Totally.
is trying to get wood that's been harvested conscientiously, and another is to think about where you're going to use that wood. You know, what the application is, how hard and good of a wood you need for a floor. Maybe you can come
Mhm.
and use a floor that grows quicker, a tree that will be replacing itself every 8 years instead of every 50 years or 100 years, and make that kind of decision. Um, and sort of make things that are really good quality that will last a long time. Those are all ways that we can help protect forests and trees.
Mhm. Absolutely. And when we purchase something, value it and keep it and use it until, it's it's done. So I think the client has also a responsibility to value it and use it for as long as possible, thinking about the tree if,
Yeah, I mean, if it's
it's
nice and you get tired of it, somebody else will use it. Like, I'm pretty confident that all of my chairs are being sat on now, whether by the original person who bought them or maybe went to stoop
yeah.
sale and these things happen. But if it's nice, somebody's gonna keep sitting on it.
Yeah, definitely. So I will definitely remember. I remind everyone to check out Dan's furniture because it is beautiful and it looks very comfortable too. So,
Thank you.
so that's important. So, um, You mentioned that wood is nice to be around, and I've shared some studies with our readers on that were most research on the physiological effects of wood have been made in Japan, actually. And it's been uncovered that it lowers our stress, our cortisol levels, even reduces blood pressure. So even the smell of wood can release like dopamine and serotonin. So do you feel like you've experienced or you experience these kinds of sensations when you're working with wood?
Wow, I've never thought of that. That's a new one for me. Uh,
Mhm.
it's like, geez, that's and I have to think about that and get back to you whether I think that I mean, I've always had wood in my life. I've always lived in places with wood floors, sure. It's just such a standard. I agree. I mean, I do see what you're saying. You walk into a place that's real, definitely love wood. Um,
Mhm.
normally,
So, getting into technology, this is actually one of the advances, and I think the possibilities that technology and physiological testing equipment has given us is this ability to see physiologically through data how wood impacts us, like our nervous system and our blood pressure and such things. But getting into technology a bit, so how do you enjoy, or how do you deal with the connection between technology and wood, like machinery, for example? Because I know
So
that you.
you just mentioned that these studies were done in Japan, and it's like you can't have a discussion about woodwork without talking about Japan.
Mhm.
Those guys really know what they're doing. Um, they and from a there's a technology. You're saying technology, and I'm thinking CNC machine. I'm sure most people are. But I mean, technology is just any advance and any the combination of tools and techniques that have been developed. And Japanese woodwork and Chinese as well, Asian in general, but specifically Japanese was light years ahead of all Western woodwork. Um, thousands of years sort of before Europe got its act together. There's a My Japanese chisels are amazing. Everybody would loves their Japanese chisels. There's just nothing. They're like a softer metal that's the body of it, and then there's a harder metal that's been fused into the tip so that it's sharper where it needs to be sharp and more malleable where it needs to be more malleable, and it's wonderful. In the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, there's a um it's the basement, right? It's the basement where you got to take your kids because, well, insist on going. I remember insisting on going when I was a kid. It's where the armaments are, and there's horses with suits of armor and the people and the guns and the swords, and there's a room of swords, and it's got all of these swords, and you look through, and this I was there recently. I guess I'm remembering this really clearly with the
Yeah.
boys. And there's one area where there are a couple of Japanese swords, katanas, in a room full of European swords. And they look like a mistake. It looks like by accident somebody put some new swords in this room full of rusty old things. And all right, rusty, it's the metal. I'm sure they have it nice and clean. But you can tell that the metal is degraded, pitted, worn. You were asking about like the lifespan of wood, lifespan of metal as well. And these katana are like new, and they're thousands of years old. They're older than the pitted European metalwork. The Japanese metalwork was so advanced, and they applied that same metallurgy, those same processes that they made their swords with, to woodwork. So it's like, certainly the ninjas of woodwork. That is a technological leap from thousands of years ago. I wish I were better with the dates. I'm kind of doing this very hand wavy, but we can fill in the blanks at some point. But the metalworking technology was huge because it makes a very big difference to be able to make a precise cut, and the chisel goes exactly where you want it to go. The saw cuts the way you want it to cut. It's a
Mm.
difference between drawing with a crayon and a beautiful designer's pencil. So that's technology that I absolutely embrace. There's the Japanese also, I think it's the first human beings to realize that they were depleting their forests. I guess island culture helps. I mean, at least the first
Mm.
they replanted their forests in the ancient dynasties at a time when Europe was clear cutting everything. They were
Mhm.
replanted. So they have old growth forests, hundreds and hundreds, trees that are hundreds of years old that have been replanted.
Mhm.
One of the results, there was this like technological boom that happened for Japanese and in their architecture. They were getting better and better at woodworking and making bigger and bigger temples and using longer and longer tree trunks to do this with. And eventually they started running out of those tree trunks because there's only so many, 500-year-old trees that you can have on your island. That's when they began planting more on the one hand. And on the other hand, they began developing joinery that would allow them to fuse two shorter trees together to make a longer one.
Mhm.
And that joinery gets very precise. It's sort of easy to join pieces of wood like this, easier. To join two pieces of wood end to end is very difficult. You can just imagine how you're going to do that without it snapping. They
Right.
have really complicated sort of puzzle, interconnected, beautiful joinery. And all of that was a technological advance thanks to their ability with metal and their necessity and their need. There's always like you have the capacity and the need that drives technology, right? So I embrace the chisel. I embrace the machines, which was like another leap forward. This is this industrial revolution kind of thing where they would set up woodworking shops next to a river, have a huge water wheel, and the water wheel would go to a leather bound, same kind of leather that I use in my furniture, by the way, and that would turn a giant axle on the roof, and then come down and turn all of these machines. As we got electric motors, all of that was replaced with electric motors that were outside of the machine, and then electric motors that will move into the machine. So a lot of and there are a lot of people who draw the line in technology before machines like that, um,
Right.
to do everything by hand. So using hand planes and using plane saws, chisels, that kind of thing. Beautiful. I bet that, like if this were a hobby for me, I would love to do that. But in addition to loving woodworking, it's also a source of income for for me and for people who work with me in the shop. It's just too time consuming. There's no way
Mhm.
we'd be able to make a living working with by hand like that. So it's something that you do as a hobby because you enjoy and you love the experience of doing it. Sure. Can you make a smoothie with a knife and a cutting board? Absolutely. But I use a blade.
That's a good analogy, actually. That's a really good.
So yeah, so I do use those tools. And then there's a next step, the CNC robotic and robotic machining. That's not feel like that's also there is like another economic governing concern. I could certainly use a machine like that for my chairs. Maybe I don't have enough money to buy it, but I could probably get a loan to buy it. uh, and then step up production because it would be working faster all night long, all of that. And the end result will be I'd be able to make more money and fire people, which doesn't seem like that's why it's a lot of work to go to eliminate people's livelihood. I have people who work with me in the shop who enjoy their jobs, and I'm not motivated to try and replace anybody with a CNC machine, even though it's possible. So, I mean, yeah, it's not so I'm happy kind of using an older, slower technology
Mhm.
and and then I get to have a closer connection with the wood instead of through a computer. I'm actually touching the wood and moving it and fitting it together. And other people, they get to do that too. They're learning. People who work with me become fully capable joiners. It's just, it keeps more of the profits of my business in the community. I
Mhm.
don't see, I mean, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, and certainly looks like it, works and it'll be great. And I don't know, there are some times, when you want to go to IKEA and just get a bookshelf for your garage and that kind of thing. I don't know what to say. Like if you want to do mass manufacturing to make cheap priced, not even quality. You could do my quality work. You could probably do half of what I do with a CNC machine, end up
Mhm.
sanding it, finishing it, and you wouldn't even know. It would just be mass produced. kind of pretending to be artisanal. I'm sure that there's a lot of that out there. Uh,
Mhm.
but it's not the real thing. So, I don't know. One of the things I do, when I have an order, everything I do is bench made. So if someone orders 4 chairs, those 4 chairs are going to be made together from
Oh.
one tree. And if it's not from one tree, I'm going to take planks of wood and I'm going to make sure that they all look good together. Then I'm going to
Mhm.
find, okay, if I have a back leg that curves like this, I'm going to look for a place in the wood that the grain curves like this. And
Mhm.
once you start automating and running a lot more, once it becomes more of a factory than a shop, you can't do that. That's why when you look at factory made furniture, the grain never has anything to do with the rest of the
Really?
piece. It's
Mm.
you need to have like a slower artisanal eye to kind of figure out where in the board did these pieces go so that the grain accompanies the movement of the furniture. And you don't get that when you bump up production. And so the CNC machining like that, it's definitely you lose something because you're beginning to use the wood as if it were just like steel, like a material. It doesn't matter which tube of steel you buy,
Mhm.
they're all the same. So you begin using the wood as just a material that's all the same, and it loses some personality.
And I
So
guess if efficiency or effectiveness with regards to the climate and the weather, because you mentioned before that even after it's cut down, the wood continues to expand or absorb moisture from the air. So I guess that if the machine can't analyze how would expand or how the grain would behave with another grain in another area, do you think that would be detrimental
no,
too?
I think it's that you can handle that because it's not the machine making decisions on its own. It's you drawing something on a computer and then the machine is cutting the parts that you're asking it to cut. There's still a lot of handwork and woodworking, no matter which way you slice it. Eventually, robots are just going to take over everything. But for now, even with
Sure.
CNC machining, if it all depends on the quality or the final product. It requires the higher quality final products require some handwork, at least at the
Mhm.
end. Sanding. Sanding is boring if that's all you do. I experienced that for a while. So it's it's a more fulfilling job to be more involved with the wood.
Mhm.
I dry my own wood, which takes about a year. From when wood comes into the shop, I stack it,
Mhm.
cinch it down, I let it dry, and that takes about a year to flatten it, and then I use it. So get like sort of in contact with this wood from just after it was sawn from the tree, which is very nice.
Mhm.
Wood movement is something that's like a design issue more than a building issue. So as long as
Mhm.
here's when you see and this is another thing I do a lot of, watch princess movies with my daughter. The medieval woodwork, the drawbridge from the from the castle, and there's huge planks, and they're like bolted to other huge planks. So you have
Mhm.
a door that's what we use for like garden furniture now, because each of those planks is going to shrink and expand. So when you build it and they're touching, that's great, but then it shrinks and there's a hole between the planks. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter if you're medieval, put another log on fire. At some point, I don't know when. Jeez, imagine it was like Gothic architecture, probably around that time. Woodworkers designed the frame and panel, which is how. So think about like your kitchen cabinets or your doors. It's got this like square, and then the wood is in the
Mhm.
middle. So it looks like a
Yeah.
frame framing a piece of wood. And the reason is that a thin piece of wood moves very little. So it's basically a consistent dimension. Whereas a thick piece of wood moves a lot because there are a lot of fibers that are absorbing and expanding.
Mhm.
The thin frame is the door that fits in to your door frame perfectly if everything's going well.
Mhm.
And that's not going to move because it's made out of thin pieces of wood. The inside is going to move a lot. So
Oh,
that inside panel is set into a groove, let's see, but not all the way. When you build it, you make a groove that cuts all the way through the middle of the frame. This is the door frame, right? It's like this.
Mhm.
And the panel sits halfway in. So it can't get out and it can't
Oh,
move, but when it
int
expands, it has somewhere to go. And then, so with the
Mhm.
seasons, it moves. You are seeing more or less. So if you've got a panel, say, with like a raised panel, it's got that like bevel all the way around. You're seeing more or less of that bevel depending on the season. You don't even notice. That little amount would make your doorstep. So you could ask a CNC machine to make your panel, and you'd assemble it the way it needs to be assembled, and the machine would be able to make that without any problem, as long as it got the direction from somebody who's programmed it in there.
Right. As long as it got the prompt, basically.
That's right.
So that's amazing and fascinating how much needs to be calculated in order for it to be able to expand all that it can, right? Because I guess that to a certain degree, we need to know how much it will expand in order for it
Yeah,
to.
we work with rule of thumb usually. I mean, it depends on the wood, and there are tables on of wood movement for different kinds of wood. But in general, it's about an
Mm.
eighth of an inch per foot. So you figure, oh, I've
Oh.
got a foot of wood, that's going to move an eighth of an inch. And since I'm no engineer, I make it a quarter of an inch to be safe.
That's good. That's good. Wow, Dan, it's been fascinating, really. So, what kind of, just as a last closing question, unless you have anything else to add, I'm interested in what your clients say about your furniture. What feedback
Well,
do
I
you get?
invite you to look at Etsy. I think I have
Mhm.
over 100 reviews there, all 5-star. Everybody loves them. I want to toot my own
That's
horn. Yes, I do. So go check it
Mhm.
out and let them speak for themselves. I think my business basically consists of I'm making furniture here in Argentina and I'm sending it out around the world. And and to do that, people, nobody's going to trust someone who sells furniture on the internet, which they shouldn't. And it goes by with reviews. People buy my furniture, they leave nice reviews. Everybody's very happy with it. I don't think I can share my screen to show you. Is that possible? Let me see. Share
There
screen.
is a sharing feature here. If you'd like, there's a little arrow where you can share. It's
Seems to see
right
that.
next to the.
Well, oh boy. Looks like it's going to be a little more difficult. Let me see if I can share. Let me see if I can share some reviews.
That'd be awesome. Did you find the share screen button?
Did find it. I'm having it is loading slowly. Well, I don't know. I wish this would let's give it one quick shot. If it doesn't work, I'll
Sure,
just let
absolutely.
it
It's
go.
worth it. So Dan, I know
Yeah.
you do like a bar
It does seem to
stool.
be okay. I am
It
going
is?
to share my screen with you so you can take a look. Dan Bursztyn, Etsy shop. Fantastic. Are you seeing this?
Yeah, it's about to load. It is. There it is. Okay, good.
There is. So
Maybe if
these
you
are
can
some
zoom
swivel
in.
stools for a house in London,
So
and
Dan, if
very
you can
happy. There's a table. They're happy. Everybody's very happy here. Um, we've got the quality of craftsmanship is outstanding. Dan is a true pro. Here's a sofa.
Oh, that looks
Um,
so comfortable.
compliments perfectly. Let's see. We've got some of these bar stools with black leather.
Oh, I love those.
Absolutely excellent set of counter stools. Here's a lounge chair. My 5th purchase from Dan. I have a lot of people who come back and buy plenty of furniture. You can kind of see a sofa here in the background. Um, armchairs, world-class craftsmanship and customer support. Come on, does it get
Wow.
better than that? Incredible set of chairs for me. A lot of people kind of call out that it's for me that I'm making these custom. Here's an armchair. I do this guitar
Mhm.
stand. It's
Oh,
more
that's
than what I hoped for.
beautiful. That's
Here's
so
another
beautiful.
sofa with this nice leather finished back. I make this small chair is inspired in Sakakura, who's a Japanese
Mhm.
designer. It's a very low to the ground chair. Um, like that. Extra
Beautiful.
large. If you've got an extra large butt, I've got an extra large chair for you. No worries.
Extra.
We've got yeah. So you can
Wow,
kind of
those are so
peruse through
beautiful.
these, but there's I don't know how many. I have 240 sales and something like half of those are 4 or 5-star
Wow.
reviews. People love
These are
these.
so beautiful. They are so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing the Etsy. I'm definitely gonna link to Dan's Etsy shop so people can just slide and take a look at all of the kinds of furniture that you do. There's so much variety, even a guitar stand. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been many years and sort of one. Some right now in the shop, I have 3 separate custom items, and they're probably going to make it into my catalog. People say, "Oh, you know what? I like this, but what I need is this." And so I work with them.
Mhm,
I do a hand sketch, a hand drawn sketch. It looks good, and then we move into a computer. I do a model. And when that looks
mhm.
good, I print that out and make it in the shop. And if it's something that I like, which it usually is, it gets part of my catalog. So I
Catalog,
definitely
wow, that's great. I hope to have one of your furniture,
I'd love to
someday.
make this up there.
So thank you. That's it's been really, really enjoyable because I've learned so much about wood from different perspectives, and to see the end result being so beautiful. And also the leather seems extremely comfortable. It
Oh,
really
I'm glad
is.
you said you're welcome to come try them out anytime.
Yeah.
So
Thanks, Dan.
thanks for
Thanks
the
so
interview. And
Yeah,
good luck with
absolutely.
your blog and with your project.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'll be sharing it. And everyone make sure to check out Dan's Etsy shop, and we'll see you soon.